Small organisations often feel they are data poor, but thinking differently about data they have, or could access, can help them achieve their aims, for example providing better services to users or demonstrating impact to funders. To explore how different kinds of data can be encountered, visualised and built upon, University of the Arts London hosted a short, intensive data studio. Over 2 days, 35 participants were introduced to a variety of information about food poverty in the UK and how food banks work. They were also introduced to the Trussell Trust, an organisation which facilitates a network of food banks. Experts from data science, art and design, sociology, policy and local government, as well as food bank volunteers, worked together in small teams. They explored how to describe challenges faced by food banks, using a range of media. Looking closely at data from small organisations such as food banks can suggest a whole range of possibilities for new research. And with the aid of fabric, string, pipe cleaners, modelling clay, Lego figures, and of course post-it notes, many ways of making the problem speak became possible. And, in attempting to represent issues, stakeholders who might need this research come into sight. When you think from the perspective of a food bank, some pressing questions come to mind. When you think like a local authority or policy maker, others jump out. And if you are trying to understand how to do research in a venue staffed by volunteers who don't have much time to host a friendly interviewer, still other options arise. So the data studio enabled people from different specialisms to explore food poverty and then generate new proposals for research projects. It instructed them to translate information into different forms and media so they could engage with a specific aspect of food poverty and food bank operations. One group used what they found out about food bank operations to focus on the gaps between what people donate and what food banks actually need. Their project linked supermarkets, donors and food banks. If this idea was taken forward, we would need to understand more about supermarket supply chains. We would also need to understand the cultural meanings of gifting food or shampoo to strangers. Food banks rely on local networks of volunteers, donors and referring organisations which focus on health, housing or other areas. One group proposed making the patterns of these networks visible to other food banks. Built as a cardboard model here, we notice immediately that data would need to have some kind of standardised form. Another group explored the idea of a dashboard, publishing data about food bank operations as a trigger to other organisations offering services relevant to some of the same users. Of course, it isn't just organisations which could provide information for these new research projects. The individuals who use food banks are often in contact with other organisations, helping them get their lives back on track. Characterising individuals as moving between different organisations was another group's way of thinking about food bank data. One group suggested the possibility of providing stable records for individuals facing situations in which they had to produce data about themselves, perhaps in the form of a digital journal. Before developing this, we'd need to know more about whether service users find telling their story beneficial, or whether they would prefer all their data to be stored in one place that they would control, and which would digitally travel with them. Another group focused on the frontline staff in organisations associated with food poverty. This group proposed making the experience of food poverty more obvious to staff working in the benefits system. They suggested using digital devices as a way to better understand how staff might receive information about changes in food bank usage. Of course, a research project would need to know more about what technologies would best interact with specific work contexts and organisational routines. Another group focused on understanding food banks as places where local habits of eating together and chatting may be more important to people giving and getting help than some distant infrastructure. People visiting food banks are often in a state of crisis in their lives, so any data must be collected and used sensitively. One research proposal was for a project which linked different kinds of data. The team proposed collecting stories about the experiences of people using food banks and translating these into quantities which could be associated with larger data sets and using them to shape policy. Zooming in still further, the final team looked at one very small but highly significant interaction within food banks. That's the one which is generated as part of offering and accepting a cup of tea and a biscuit. This team proposed using everyday objects as conversation prompts during data gathering, without interrupting the normal activities. A package containing 2 tea bags could be a way to trigger extra information, but also shape a memory of the gift of tea in a conversation. The data studio is a way of opening up problems which may result in new research questions or proposals for interventions. It enables people to explore data and different perspectives, and it surfaces the hidden work required to produce data and make problems visible. What challenges does your organisation face that a data studio might help you address? What kinds of knowledge and expertise could be brought together for your data studio? And how many hidden assumptions might you uncover behind what is researchable?